Hey everyone, welcome to the TEConnect podcast. I'm John Martin.
And I'm Dean Reverman.
So Dean, I don't think most of us really thought a lot about how we get things that we buy, like where they actually came from, how they got to the stores that we bought them from.
Yes, no.
And then that, pesky COVID thing came along.
That came around, yeah.
5-letter word.
And exposed the supply chain, and everybody freaked out and learning, oh my gosh, where does all this stuff actually come from?
Someday we're going to tell our grandchildren about, the hunt for, Lysol cleaning wipes and toilet paper, canned green beans, the stuff that took us forever to get. So
yeah, let's never do that again.
Yeah, we kind of exposed that little razor's edge that retail supply chain seems to work on.
It's a wonderful machine.
It is.
When you think about it in the aggregate, it's just mind-boggling.
Exactly. Yeah. But let's be honest, even pre-pandemic, things were starting to shift and change.
Oh, sure.
Customer expectations were changing.
Oh, yes.
So the way stuff had to get where it needed to go and how customers were going to receive it's been changing.
I see.
And we've talked a lot about on this show about some of that. I think we've talked a lot more maybe front of house than even back of house. But this episode, we're going to talk a little more about the back side of things.
Oh, nice.
The warehousing side.
Where the real
retail,
work gets done,
the fulfillment. Yeah, exactly. The folks that are making sure that you get that can of green beans, you get those Lysol wipes.
They've been under a little pressure over the last couple of years. A little pressure.
Just a little bit. Yeah, exactly. So we got a couple guests with us from Zebra. We got Tim Kane and John Wirthlin. They're going to talk to us a little bit about the whole warehouse fulfillment process, what's changed from their point of view, what they're seeing on the operational backside as well as front of the house.
Do we get a crystal ball? Are they going to talk to us about what's coming?
Maybe. We'll leave that up to them.
That's the curveball I throw them.
Yeah, we're going to get into some trends. There's a cool little ebook that Zebra wrote that's got some trends about retail.
Okay, well there you go. Okay, trends are good.
We'll go through some of that stuff. We're going to talk about like visibility, how to empower employees.
Okay,
all that good stuff.
Good.
We got lots of good talking points to get through today.
I like it.
All that plus our usual value to the VAR. What's TEConnecting with us? It's time to plug in and get connected.
Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. It's time to get connected.
All right, as I mentioned, our guest today, we have two of them with us, actually. I'm going to start off with Tim Kane. He is a retail subject matter expert for Zebra. So, Tim, welcome to the show. Tell us a little about yourself, how you got to your role, what experience you have with retail in the background.
Well, thank you, and it's great to be here. My role is I've been working in the retail sales or sales management space for many years and started my career quite a while ago with IBM. And I've always worked with large retailers across North America. Also spent some time with Symbol Technologies, who some of you might know was a company that eventually ended up getting acquired by Zebra. And then about 6 years ago, I took this role at Zebra, which has been fantastic. I get an opportunity to work with all of our retail customers across North America, really talking about trends that are impacting their initiatives. So this podcast is perfect because there are some major trends out there that have really had an impact on the retailer and specifically on the supply chain. So I'm looking forward to talking to you.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad to have you here. Yep. Yeah, I think I've mentioned before my old retail days, I used the old Symbol mobile computer scanner for device, big, giant, bulky gray thing.
But it worked.
It worked
really well.
They're a lot cooler and sleeker now, but it worked. Yeah. So. Our other guest today is John Wirthlin. He is the warehousing and supply chain SME for Zebra. So we're getting both angles.
There
here.
you go. Nice.
The retail expert, and we've got the warehousing supply chain side. So same question for you, John. Tell us a little about your background, how you got to where you are.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. So, so I actually started my career, believe it or not, as a medic in the Air Force back in the 80s. And then ended up going into medical logistics, and I was going to school for business information systems at the same time. So in the early 90s, I had a captain that said, hey, I want you to, run the batch process that we have every night for the warehouse. And also want you to figure out how to do EDI and ad hoc reports. And I said, what the heck are you talking about? So not only did I learn logistics early on, but I also learned how to extract different master files, from the, on 5 1/4 inch discs. So, maybe there's a couple of your users out there that, listeners out there that know what that is.
Hey, we know what that is. We know what that is, John.
Right.
We're older than we look.
Yeah. You got something to put your, if you're running out of coasters. Anyway, so I did lots of consulting in that area, and then I've been in different areas of program management on the IT infrastructure side, and also application development. And actually, for a part of my career, I was with Conagra Foods, and about 20 years ago, we were building mixing centers instead of brand-centric warehouses. So I was actually a customer and responsible for working with Symbol to figure out what kind of products we're going to put in those new warehouses. So it's come full circle, and now I really enjoy the work that I've been doing here. I've been here about 2.5 years at Zebra, and I'm enjoying kind of connecting the dots with our customers and figuring out what relevant solutions are applicable to what their needs are. Not only tactically, but also where their business are trying to go to in the next 3 to 5 years.
I love the journey that people go through and
I do
get into
too.
this industry.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you for your service, by the way, John. That's awesome.
Yeah. I love the medical side of it too, because you want to talk about a supply chain where you've got to have what you need, where you need it, when you need it.
100%.
Anything on the medical side there, that's pretty high demand. So
yeah. What do you mean the medicine shipment got lost in South Dakota? No.
What do you mean we don't have needles?
Yeah, right? Yeah.
You can't afford that kind of stuff.
Can't do that stuff. No.
Well, then let's talk about this. And obviously, again, we've got this breadth of knowledge here in front of us here. So let's talk about the retail warehousing side of things and the fulfillment piece in particular.
Yep.
Because again, we talk a lot about front of the house, and we've also talked a lot about supply chain and warehousing in general. But there's some very unique aspects and challenges to retail warehousing and retail fulfillment in particular. A lot of it driven by folks like us.
Us, yes.
Just
all those pesky customers that have high demands. Yes.
We want what we want. We want it now. We want it wherever we feel like we need it.
That's right.
So tell us a little bit more about it. Let's talk about, again, we know that where and how customers are shopping. That's changed quite dramatically over I'd say the last decade in total, but especially obviously in the last 4 or 5 years. How has that changed things on the backside, though? When you're going to the retail, supply chain, warehousing side of things, how's it changed their operations? Tim, why don't you kick us off here?
Sure. It's changed it a lot. And I think, as you mentioned, the really big factor before COVID was Amazon. And Amazon reset expectations that you could get what you want, when you wanted it, and wherever you wanted it. And that really got exacerbated when COVID kicked in, because then we had people that had to shop through Amazon or had to shop online, and it created tremendous problems in the supply chain for a number of reasons. First of all, it was hard to get product, and it was hard to get labor. In the past with labor, you could always throw labor at a problem, and that's what retailers and retail warehouses did. They would just hire more labor to fix the problem they had. But with COVID, you couldn't do that. And the other thing that exposed was the fact that if you had somebody who placed an online order, it was very easy for you to lose them as a customer if you didn't fulfill their order. And many retailers really didn't know what their inventory looked like because the supply chain was such a mess. Their warehouses were down as far as not being able to get the people they needed to service the customer demand. And the inventory levels were such that they were fluctuating almost daily, depending on the product that you were looking at. So it created tremendous disruption in the warehouse sector.
John, what would you add on to that?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly agree with everything Tim said. I think the expectations of a customer and the different delivery methods are probably what was key, along with the labor shortages. So retail had two main challenges, right? They had to meet new demands and new ways of servicing the customer, but with less people. So, having to do more with less. I mean, we have all heard that term throughout our life, but, when we have new shoppers or existing shoppers that are doing things differently, I always use the excuse, I visited my mom, she was 84 at the time in St. Louis during the middle of COVID, and she was on her phone, and I couldn't figure out why she was on her phone, not tech savvy at all. And she's like, well, I'm ordering my stuff from Walmart. I'm like, you don't even know how to pull up your kids' pictures when I send them to you. How are you ordering stuff from Walmart? And it kind of hit me, that, not only was she more savvy in a new entrant, a new kind of, group of people that were entering the e-commerce market, but they were getting smarter about it. She always said, she said, yeah, I went there, I ordered this, and they're supposed to bring it out, and they didn't have it. So I had to go somewhere else, and I think that's also what was really key here was that not only were there different delivery methods, but the retailers and the supply chain had to be very accurate about what was in store so that, it was very easy for a customer to look online and say, oh, you didn't have it. I'm going to go from retailer A to retailer B, and maybe I'll keep going to retailer B. So it became not only a competitive nature, but, I think it increased, where we got our toilet paper, when we needed it at that time.
Absolutely.
And I think,
oh, go ahead, Tim. Yep.
yeah, and John makes a great point that the accuracy of the inventory became so much more important. And we're seeing that today where customers are really trying to figure out, how do I get my inventory levels, first of all, at the right level? And then how do I get the inventory where it should be, when it should be? And they've gotten into this situation where the customer expects a seamless transaction with their retailer, whether it be online or in store. Meaning that if I order something that you show on your website, I expect it to be delivered. And if I go into the store looking for a product, I expect it to be there. And now the customer has so much more power because if it's not there, there are so many alternatives.
100%. I got a couple statistics I'd like to throw on the table because I think it kind of starts to get towards, how things have changed so dramatically there. Well, first off, here's a stat for you. In 2020, an estimated 18% of all retail sales happened online. Wow. And that number is estimated to go up to 22% by 2024. So there you have it. A quarter of all retail is happening online.
And I don't see that number going down anytime soon.
No.
It's just going to keep moving up.
Absolutely not. But for online retailers, the average cost to fulfill an order is 70% of the value of the average order value. Oh, wow. So if it's a $10 order, $7 of that is towards the fulfillment cost.
Right,
so
right.
when I was mentioning, just the demand to get even hyper efficient behind the scenes in an online retail environment or just a retail environment, I think that Tim and John have done a great job of already exposing some of the areas right in visibility and inventory and visibility and stuff like that. But when you start quantifying it, there's real dollars at play here, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And the trend that is not going away, that more and more of that is happening on an online environment. Right?
Yeah,
so
and
clearly,
I think those statistics too kind of speak to a clash that you're seeing with what the retailers themselves want to get out of this, or what they want to happen. Like, if it's costing $7 out of every 10 just in order to make the fulfillment process happen behind the scenes, and clearly in their mind they're probably thinking we'd really rather people actually be showing up in stores, or coming as direct to us as possible to minimize the amount of money that's spent on that back end trying to get stuff where people want it.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, and then we, the consumer again, are also the ones that are like, but no, I want more of the rapid, quick fulfillment to my door so I don't have to go to the store. That's a huge clash that's happening there, where you've got two sides that are kind of competing against one another in what they want to get out of this whole situation. And I know,
go ahead.
Well, I'll say I know a lot of people complain, it used to bemoan the Amazon effect, especially when Amazon was the dominant kind of online store for a long time there, and no one else was really playing there yet or figured out how to. But it was also one of those things that once you uncorked that bottle, once you let that genie out, you weren't going to put it back. No one was going to be like, yeah, never mind, I'll go. Well, just let's shutter Amazon. Let's just all go back to the stores.
I don't like the convenience.
Yeah, exactly.
We're
not going to, I don't need to do that anymore. It wasn't going to happen. So everybody else just had to catch up at some point, whether you like it or not. And I get that it's still a conflict, but what else were you going to say there?
Well, I was going to ask these guys, when you think back a house, I got a couple more things to just kind of put on the table here real quick. In an e-commerce setting, products are manually handled 20 times or more, right? So when you think about that, I mean, just think about the transformation that's kind of happened back a house and just reacting to the online environment. I'm not going to bring up the nasty phrase of reverse logistics. we can get into that.
That's a different podcast, probably.
I'd love to have your take on reverse logistics, right? So, I mean, fulfillment's getting it out, but then what about when it starts coming back and dealing with that? We've had that. So, anyway, guys, maybe comment on, just what's happened in the warehouse in the back. John, maybe you're the better one to talk about that. Just some of the transformation that we're seeing, even down to the SMB level, right, of fulfilling orders at the small to medium-sized retailer, right? They have to compete with the Walmarts of the world too.
Right. Well, I think it's interesting. We tend to approach, at Zebra and our partners tend to approach a customer and look at them, kind of with blinders on. But this whole movement has forced us to look at the supply chain holistically. And the big retailers are starting to mandate how labels are put on products from their source, and even starting to mandate RFID on those products so that they can really track and understand where those products are throughout the supply chain, where they are in the their inventory, and in order to meet those those demands that we're talking about. And it's funny, 3 or 4 years ago, RFID and retail would never have been mentioned in the same sentence. But I think those technologies have improved so much, and the cost has come to a point where people always ask me, well, how can Walmart, I mean, if Walmart's doing it, well, how much does a tag cost? And will I say, I don't tell them how much it is, but I said, if they're putting it on every carton of underwear, then they're probably seeing a value out of it, and if an organization like Walmart and Target and some of our other customers are seeing that value add, then that sort of visibility is needed, or they wouldn't be making that investment.
For sure.
Definitely.
Yep.
Well, so let's get into this ebook that Zebra has put out. It's called 3 Trends Shaping Retail Fulfillment. We have it currently available on BlueStar Nation. I'll talk a little bit more later about how you can find it if anybody wants to take a look at that and download it, because there's going to be a lot more interesting stuff there too. But of these 3 trends, the first one is exceeding customer expectations. And John, you kind of hinted at that just there a little bit of, one of the ways that we can, potentially help out with that. But let's talk about that. What are some of the solutions, some of the technologies that can help retailers really meet this increased demand? Like, what are we looking at here in order to make sure that the customer expectation side of things is fulfilled? How do we help our retail warehousing partners get there?
Well, I think from a warehouse perspective, I'll just talk about 2 things, and I'll turn it over to Tim as far as the front of the store, if you will, and that. But they connect, right? And we're realizing that manufacturers and supply chain and stores have a relationship. I mean, our customers have known that all the time, but I think us as a technology community are becoming more aligned with that. But the use of RFID to locate products and understand where our counts are and service levels are, different areas is extremely important. And then what's also important is using robotics to move product around. In larger fulfillment areas, there's a lot of non-productive foot traffic of people picking orders and putting them on carts, in bins, and then pushing those carts through these massive warehouses. And we're seeing a really huge increase in robotics, especially with our Fetch Robotics acquisition we did about a year and a half ago. We're seeing a lot of fulfillment, not only at the each level, but even at the pallet and large carton level, where robots are being used to take out that non-productive foot traffic and let the people work on concentrate on the picking and selecting, and then letting the robots move the product around to where it needs to go. And that really, I think, helps, especially when you're trying to locate something quickly, where you have situations where you may have a distribution center that's even connected to stores in some industries, where somebody's sitting in the lobby and they have a turnaround time that says, hey, if you come in and we have it in stock, we'll give it to you in so many minutes, or even turn it around to you if you come to the actual distribution center in X amount of time. Well, people are really hoofing it to try and make that work, and robotics are starting to help with that.
And if you extend from the distribution center into the store, and how do you meet and exceed customer expectations there? One of the first things you do is, when the order gets there, how do you verify what's on the order? Today, we're seeing a lot of retailers doing manual verification. They'll open the carton up, they'll scan the items, they'll put them on the shelf. That's not going to cut it going forward, because you have to run your stores. You're talking about the increase in costs associated with online orders, and in order to address that cost and to get at that cost, you have to run your stores a lot more efficiently, which means getting the right inventory there at the right time. So you don't want to be taking in excess inventory, spending time getting it on the shelf, only to disappoint a customer because it's in the back room and it hasn't gotten to the floor. So RFID is something that can help there. The other thing that's really helpful inside the store is just giving the associates the tools they need to do their job. And Zebra has done really well in providing the handheld mobile computers to the store associates, so that they have the information they need when they need it to help the customers have a really successful and enjoyable journey through the store.
Nothing worse than. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, and just to add to, barcoding is still the most relevant, capture technology that we have. But what we're also finding is that I think the retail industry, I'm seeing, labeling, standards coming from the source supplier into the distribution center, into the store, becoming more standardized. But we're seeing two gamuts where a supplier may provide, the distribution center of a retailer with no labeling on a product. So they literally have to open them all up to, the extent of, a Walmart where that labeling of barcoding or even RFID is already there, and they're getting those electronic ship notices back and forth so that they can receive quicker and they can put that information in there, using GS1 standards, which is a whole nother subject for another time. But I think you're going to see this industry starting to adopt those standards so that they can, quickly receive product into their systems and not have to, put all the labels on themselves. There's going to have to be some of that efficiency gains in order to keep up with this increased demand.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about the expectations, right? What are the customers' expectations? I'm going to throw some stats at you. I'm going back into the online world. 38% of online shoppers will abandon their order if the delivery is going to take longer than a week. So, if you're a retailer out there and you don't have inventory visibility, to Tim's point, I mean, you're not going to be able to compete. I mean, Well, I mean, I don't even know. How would you set that up if you don't have inventory? Like, well, just tell people it's going to be maybe about a week or so.
Yeah.
We'll get it to you there.
You can't do that anymore.
You got to be accurate, right? You have to be accurate, because if you can get that down to 4 to 5 days or less than 3, then now you only have 8% of people that are abandoning it. So, I mean, it's dramatic, right? If you want to compete in that world, you have to have inventory visibility so that you can get it there. And then I like where you're going on the in-store experience as well. So, of course, now if you're going to spend the time to go into the retail establishment, you want the experience. We've talked about that. But also, if you like the shirt or you like whatever it is, but they don't have the right size, mobilizing the associates so that they can check inventory of other stores or whatever, and they can facilitate the shipment to your home in real time. This is how retail is this is the behavior of retail and the expectation, if you will.
I mean, once again, as we always keep saying, the consumer is not going to change their attitudes.
Right. No. It's only getting worse.
No matter how much you don't like it, no matter how much it might frustrate you that they're demanding things faster and
especially the younger generation.
Yeah,
for
exactly.
sure.
Like it's not going to change. So it's either you adapt to it or just give up, Like,
yeah.
I mean,
get out of retail.
Exactly. Or if you just want to be that retailer that just says, I'm sorry, but I'm just not going to be the one that gets you what you need, when you want, where you want it. Hopefully my product's good enough that you're going to shop with us anyway. Fine.
Yep.
But stake your claim, because it's not. We're not going backwards here on this one.
Yeah.
And I like the idea that this idea, when we talk about customer expectations here, and one of the parts of that is trend there of this particular one that is highlighted in this ebook is the idea that high value tasks should be the focus. And John, you kind of hinted at this of like, hey, what how are you making sure that the most important parts of your business, which, let's be honest, at the end of the day, is making sure that the product that a customer wants gets into their hands and into their possession as quickly as possible? What can you be doing to maximize that and make sure that the highest possible value task is being prioritized? That's, to me, a place where you start, making sure that you've got the technology to make that happen. But I like also that you guys were talking about the fact that, when you look at retail, we're not just, a retail store is not just, hey, here's what we're doing in our local warehousing to get stuff into our own stores. But then you've got to deal with all these suppliers. You got to deal with all the manufacturers. You got to deal with everything that they're doing.
Right.
And if you have, let's be conservative and say 100 different manufacturers that you're routinely pulling in product from. And I'm sure that's probably a lowball number for some of the bigger stores, but you're probably looking at up to, I don't know, let's say maybe 20 different ways of doing business, of how they ship, how they, to John's point, whether they are putting barcodes on everything, on nothing, some things RFID.
Some RFID.
That has to be a logistical nightmare for the retail side of things, and we can vouch for that as a distributor.
For sure. Absolutely.
There's a reason why we exist and why VARs work with us, because we try to consolidate everything that the manufacturers might be doing into one place that makes it easy for them to understand.
Right.
So I think that's a great story, I think, to tell, as a VAR, as you're walking in there and talking with whatever part of the retail supply chain you're working with, to help them get like, hey, everybody's got to be on the same page or something's failing somewhere, and you might find yourself on the way out. Whether you're the retailer who can't get it together to put stuff in people's hands, or you're the supplier who can't get it together to get it to the retailer in time to put it in people's hands. So
right.
Well, then, Dean, you mentioned visibility, and we've talking a lot about knowing your inventory. So the next trend in this ebook that we're talking about is the operational visibility. So
yes.
beyond just even the inventory piece, but overall visibility here. So let's talk about that. What challenges are we finding there? What are some critical solutions that can help with the overall operational visibility?
John, you want to take that one you're talking about the warehouse, right?
Yeah, I think end to end, we're seeing a lot more connection between manufacturers or suppliers shipping to retail distribution centers or direct to store, direct to consumer, and we're seeing a lot of technologies that we're able to track those trucks. Right? When are they going to get there? When do I need to have people ready at my distribution center to unload a large truck? And vice versa, when do I need to have people ready at the back door of the store to unload that truck? Because we're not in winter now, but in winter you get a lot of snowstorms and delays and weather related delays, and tend to what happens is I'm gonna schedule 5 people to be here at 10 o'clock at the back dock waiting for that truck to come in, and it's quarter after and they're still just sitting there twiddling their thumbs. Well, we're starting to find that if we can bring in data feeds that know when that truck's going to get there, we can use task management to reallocate those resources until that truck is actually going to be there. And vice versa. How do we make a user or a customer's associate more efficient by, if they're walking by a particular area and they're going to be setting something down, or placing something on the shelf, and there's an order that needs to be picked, two shelves over, why can't they pick that up at the same time? So kind of task interleaving, not only at the store, but I think also at the distribution center, where let's say I pick 10 items and that last one, it also says, hey, do a cycle count on the next item over. Some of that task interleaving is where we're seeing a lot more benefits of how do we make those workers more efficient to make sure, again, that we know our product is and we know how much we have and it's accurate. Because at the end of the day, management has to make decisions on the data that they have in front of them. So if the data is correct, good decisions get made. If it's not, bad decisions get made, and bad things start to happen.
John and I have done a number of warehouse assessments recently, and we've been going through and talking to the warehouse people. And one of the things that they're telling us is they really need to look at where they can automate, because they do have fewer people in the warehouse, but they also need to do more in those warehouses. They're pushing more product to the warehouse, and they're trying to get their efficiency levels as high as they can. One area where they're really looking for automation is the job of the selector. And that's the person who is going in and picking that item that's going to be either put on a pallet and sent to a store, or it's going to be sent directly to the customer. So there's a lot of interest in what technology is out there to help that process. The selector process in the warehouse is the one that's probably the most physically demanding, and it's the one that has the highest turnover rate. So the retailers and the warehouse people realize that, and they're trying to figure out, how do I make that job easier on my people so that they're not coming in, working half a day and leaving, or they're getting fatigued and they're just not staying in the job.
Yeah, I like that angle there, because when you think about it, there's a lot of talk around AMRs, automation in the warehouse. According to a Zebra statistic that I saw, 83% of associates report increased productivity as a top benefit of working with AMRs, right? So, I mean, I think that there's obviously, we're kind of getting over the hurdle of the cobot and working with robots and together, and the overall efficiencies that these can bring to the chain is dramatic, and it's needed, right? In a lot of ways that we're seeing there, and I know that Zebra obviously is getting into it with Fetch and things of that nature. Are you seeing, is that where the trend is going? Is a certain amount of automation, not just through AMRs, but also maybe speak a little bit to like computer vision and how, utilizing that, because I know you guys now have Matrox imaging, and how you can kind of, scope, use cameras to try to make more efficient use of the resources. Are you starting to see some trends happening there as well, guys?
Yeah, I can start if that's okay. Yeah, I mean, we're seeing all these different capture technologies come into effect. And we actually have a warehouse maturity model that we use. And we talk about basically two areas where we have worker initiated transactions, which is, I receive a pallet in, somebody has to make a conscious decision to either scan that pallet or enter it into the computer system so our back-end systems know we have that product and those assets to consume. But we're seeing such a large leap towards more of a sensor-based approach. When you're looking at RFID, how can I use fixed industrial scanners? How can I use automation to automate some of those things? Because I have to. I don't have the people that I had before, like Tim said earlier, to throw. I don't have bodies to throw at the problem. So not only is it making us more efficient, but we're seeing that part of our business grow rapidly. And I think it's interesting where it really plays is in retention and recruitment at that distribution layer. So when we have you guys have all walked, if you've been to an area where there's a distribution center, you've probably seen 7 along the way, in that industrial park. And what happens is, Bill and Sue are friends, and each one of them works at a different distribution center. Well, I have Bill that works at a distribution center that has a lot of automation, and Sue doesn't. So they get together and talk, and they make the same amount. But Bill's like, "Oh yeah, we got this great automation. I walked about a half a mile," and Sue's like, "Well, I just walked 20 miles today for the same amount of money." So you can imagine there is a lot of competition, where people are jumping for 5-10 cents an hour, but we're really seeing where they're jumping for how do I keep my body and don't abuse my body, and even just the younger generation in general are really kind of naturally migrating to more technology based environments versus the old school paper and pen.
We talk about that often. I'm glad you brought that up, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like those that use technology, or those entities that have the technology in play, are more attractive to the labor that is available, which is scarce to begin with, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I think especially on the warehousing supply chain side. Well, then let's go a little further down the rabbit hole then, because that third trend that's in this ebook is all about empowering employees. Then
yeah,
you just kind of mentioned that, the idea of like, do you want to be an employee that is walking 20 miles a day because your job is inefficient and you have to go to the same shelf 5 different times throughout
with your
the
clipboard
day?
and
exactly, to get a product? Because I like what you mentioned about that earlier, the idea of like, if you're over here already picking something and there's another order that's 3 orders down the line, it's going to need something that's just two bins over.
Yep.
Why not pick both of those at once? And if you don't have that operational insight, you're not going to be able to get to that.
You can't get there.
So let's talk about this, the employee side of things then. So obviously, again, staffing shortages, high demand, all this stuff is affecting, all kinds of warehousing and supply chain, but obviously retail and warehouses, back rooms as well. So how do we make their jobs easier? What else can we do to compensate for these labor issues? Talk a little bit about some of the solutions that are getting us there. Maybe dive a little deeper than what we have already.
Well, I'll start with this one, John. I think what we're seeing is you need to give associates tools, and you need to give them tools that will allow them to do their jobs better and to be more efficient. You also need to give them tools so that they feel that they're part of the team. And if you think about it, if you decide that half the warehouse is going to get some sort of a mobile device or some sort of a tablet or something, and yet the other half isn't, well, the other half is the B team. And they can go somewhere else to get on the A team. So that's one of the things you need to think about is, how do you give everybody the tools they need and then make them feel that they're part of a team, that they want to stay there. That's one thing. The other thing is, and we hit on this earlier, take away the tasks that aren't the real high value tasks from the associates. Give those tasks to the AMRs, give those tasks to some sort of automation that can do it. Because the reality is that if your job in the warehouse is to walk around and pick up trash all day and a robot can do that, let the robot do it. Give that associate something, and as funny as it seems, there are warehouses where that's the job of somebody 8 hours a day. They're pulling trash out of a bin and putting it into the dumpster. So things like that, which we look at it and we say, yeah, it makes perfect sense. But then when you go into a warehouse and you see that they're struggling with this, and that they're struggling with retaining associates, those are the things that I think the not only the warehouse, but all of retail needs to figure out, how do we give the associates the tools they need to make them more productive and make them feel that they're part of a team.
Yeah, and I think that's a great wrap up is, giving each user the tools that they need, and the dunnage or trash removal is an interesting place where we talked about the worker initiated transaction and sensor based, and kind of in the middle is where customers are like, all right, I need to dip my toe in the water to kind of get my head wrapped around these technologies that we've been discussing. And trash removal from a robotic standpoint is a perfect low risk, easy, low hanging fruit exercise where we see a lot of our customers start, because the robot base is moving a Gaylord around, but that same robot base can move a cart, it can move different things. So it allows the customer to get that first, couple robots in, it's a low risk thing. It's a cost efficient, and it helps them and IT get their head wrapped around what that means. And, I've been in logistics, 20, 25 years. And before I came, and I actually worked for a partner for Zebra before I came to Zebra, I knew about RFID, but I never saw it. And until I saw it, it didn't start really clicking. And I think that's where the leadership that we talk to in the supply chain have been doing the same thing a lot of times in the same company for the last 20, 25 years or longer. So they know what they know. And, you have to give them the option to, not stick their necks out, but give them something that they can start with that's low risk. And again, let them get their heads wrapped around it. And then all of a sudden, all these, ideas start going, and that deployment starts getting much broader.
I love that crawl, walk, run. Start off with a little, just dip your toe in the robotics side, right?
Yeah. Solve a small problem.
Problem. And I think that's why, when you think about Zebra and how they're enabling resellers to start to grow their business into the robotics field, right? I mean, we've got a tremendous partner base out there that is adept at ADC and things of that nature. But how do we also enable them to start getting into that? And this is going to be the way to do that. Another area that I would, that I'm curious to see continue to grow is the wearable side, right? So the actual worker, how do you make them even more efficient through such things as ring scanners and stuff like that? I mean, this is the type of technology, getting back to the analogy of Bobby and Sue, both working for DCs. Well, I got this old janky, whatever, the scanner you had 20 years ago.
This giant clanky ancient one, yeah.
Whereas, the other DCs probably that has more automation, more, resources or tools like ring scanning and stuff like that, that's going to be more attractive, right? That's going to be a more attractive place for especially the younger generation to work.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, let's be honest, we've been hearing for quite some time horror stories about working in warehousing and retail, or not just retail warehousing, any kind of warehousing. There was a lot of scrutiny on Amazon for a while, and it still is out there, of practices with their employees. And again, I think as we recognize that more and more companies are going to have to adopt something akin to the Amazon model, of the sense of like, hey, we've got to make sure that we're fulfilling these orders and fulfilling customer needs as fast as possible. But if you want to do that while also acknowledging, like, I want to treat my employees fairly and
enable them
however I can, empower them to do these jobs too. Like, that's where on the SMB side of things, some of the smaller, local or regional, distributors and suppliers can make their mark and become more attractive and draw people away from some of those giant warehouses by being able to say, hey, come over here.
Yeah, right.
And we're not going to treat you the way, maybe you feel like you're being treated unfairly or poorly over there, because we're going to empower you. And it starts with technology.
Yeah.
And that's
mobile technology.
The way we get into the door here. Exactly. So, for sure. So I guess that's all very good stuff. And a huge important part of the process is helping those employees out, man, right at the front and back of the house, especially when it comes to anything related to your inventory and your products and moving them around. So this is good stuff. And as I mentioned, this is all kind of comes from an ebook that Zebra's put together about retail warehousing fulfillment. If you do want to see more of that ebook, and I do recommend checking it out, because there's a lot more information about these particular trends, some more suggestions about the technology that can get you there. There's some great statistics that you're going to want to look through, and there's a lot lot of links that click out to some studies that Zebra has done around
and
these.
videos,
some actual case studies out there. Really good stuff. So check out in the show notes. If you don't typically go there to look for the stuff we talk about, this is one that you're going to want to go find it. There's a link there to get you to where you can download that ebook. So I highly recommend checking that out. Before we get to our value to the VAR segment, I want to, as always, thank our sponsors on the TEConnect podcast. I'll single out Zebra today. We appreciate Zebra has been very supportive of this podcast from the beginning with the funding for us for the TEConnect program, the podcast in general.
Great subject matter experts.
Exactly. Yes. Lending us smart, cool people like John and Tim to come on and talk about these subjects with us. If you're interested in learning more about the podcast, if you want, to tell us a little bit more about what's going on, we need to hear from you.
You can drop us a line.
We want reviews, like and subscribe, leave a review on Apple Podcasts if you watched there. If you're watching on YouTube, just drop a comment for us. Just let us know what you think of this episode. Send in your ideas also. We need to know what you want to hear about on the show. So again, if there's a particular path we went down today that you would like for us to maybe talk a little bit more about in depth, maybe you say, hey, you know what? I want to spend a little more time talking about operational visibility. Fine. Let us know. We will find someone that can come in and have an entire episode about just that aspect of warehousing or retail in particular. So, but you have to tell us, again, there's always a link in the show notes too, to let us know about that. If you send in a topic to us, even if we don't use it, we're going to send you a TEConnect podcast
fabulous t-shirt. That's right.
Summer's coming.
Yeah.
It's getting warm.
Oh, it's here. It's hot.
Nice,
it's already hot. You need a t-shirt.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
You need a new t-shirt.
You need a new t-shirt. So send us those ideas in and we'll get those out to you. And as always, if you want to reach out to us directly, you can find us on Twitter at TEConnectPod. You can also email us TEConnect@BlueStarInc.com. All right, let's wrap things up here. First of all, with our value to the VAR, I wanted to give a little bit of a takeaway for our audience and kind of figure out if they're wrapping their minds around all this and thinking, hey, I'm playing in the warehousing retail space, and I know that there's opportunity out there. So for VARs that are currently working with retailers, either the retailers themselves or supply chain, customers that service retail, what kind of questions do you think they should be asking about right now? Where should they be going to find out where these pain points are, to figure out where some of the fulfillment solutions we've discussed today might fit into their business?
Yeah, I mean, so we can work with through our partner channels, and we can actually, talk and have either, virtual meetings with them, or if we, this is more of a strategic initiative with a customer, it's something that we could possibly do an on-site walk through and really have a good conversation within the environment.
Yep. Good probing questions. Oh, go ahead, Tim. Yep.
Yeah. The other thing that I'd encourage them to do is what we're finding is that the retailers are starting to make more investments in the supply chain. And I think they realize that, it's an area that they perhaps haven't invested as heavily as they should have. And many of them are behind the times. So they're making significant investments. And what I would encourage the VARs to do is get with the Zebra account managers, identify somebody in the supply chain area of a customer, and just go in and start to have some initial conversations with them about, what are some of your strategic initiatives? Where are the areas that you're looking to improve the efficiency of your warehouses? Are there areas that you are feeling pain that you think you need to address? Are you being told by senior executives that you need to fix this? So those types of questions, and what we're finding, and as I mentioned, John and I have been working on a number of warehouses recently where we've together, done warehouse assessments, and the people inside the warehouse are very willing and interested in talking to you. And they're excited to see you. They're excited to share. So it's been a great opportunity. And I think there's tremendous opportunity to sell some good business in there.
Agreed. There's 165 billion packages that are shipped via retail.
Just 165 billion?
Yeah, in the U.S. Alone. So, it's that understanding or just having the conversation. We always advocate going in, having a conversation about, what the end user's trying to accomplish, or are they aware of some of these things as well, which is why I think reports like this are so helpful. It can kind of frame out, and maybe these are busy people too, right? They're just trying to get product off the shelf, and they're getting hammered by different things, especially in the retail space, informing them of some of these trends and what's happening and the fact that you're competing with the Amazons of the world that are, by the way, processing 66,000 orders an hour in the U.S. I mean, that's a behemoth, right? So you need technology to help you stay relevant so that you can be there. So you have inventory visibility so that you're enabling the associates and the labor that you can get, enabling them in ways that are meaningful to the business, right? You got to have those conversations.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll add on something we were hinting at earlier and talking about is the idea of solving small problems. Where if you're working with someone who maybe feels like, hey, I don't know about all this new technology. We got a business to run. We're too busy. I don't know that we can disrupt operations to incorporate some of this stuff.
Right.
Find some small problem that you can fix. The garbage thing. It's one of those things I wouldn't have necessarily thought of that, but if you figure that out and realize okay, you've got someone who's devoting all their time to going and picking out garbage or some other kind of task that could potentially be automated, and then put that person to work somewhere else, and find something better for them to do in a different
it's more
job.
meaningful.
Yeah,
it makes the whole operation more efficient.
The high value task, whatever.
Yep.
If you can do that, great. Because I think it's a sales 101 thing. If you can solve a small problem for a customer, that starts you off on the path of trust and a relationship. That when there's bigger problems that they think you might be able to help them out with, it'll get you there too.
Yeah.
But in this case, as John noted earlier, the robotics aspect here in particular, if you were solving a small problem with robotics, then maybe later you point out and say, hey, how was that going for you? Oh, really good, great. That's not something that someone's wasting 8 hours a day doing anymore. Awesome. Wouldn't you like to maybe do something like that with XYZ parts of your business as well? Because robotics could do that too.
Right.
So you're just kind of moving that direction.
Well, and that takes understanding that whole paradigm, right?
It does.
Where things are going and that kind of thing. So being an educated solutions integrator is key to that.
Exactly. And I think the other part too, if you want to find small problems to solve, talk to the workers and employees and associates themselves.
Yes. Right. Go into the warehouse like these guys did, right?
They will tell you.
Have the conversation.
They're not going to be, just like you said, how they might be chatting, over a beer somewhere, about what's going on in one warehouse versus another.
Right.
They're not going to be shy probably to tell you either. They'll tell you what's going on.
They'll tell you.
And the problems. And when you get that kind of information, that's great stuff that you can then take to the managers and,
for sure,
and owners
the
and
decision makers.
Yeah, exactly. And say, hey, look, I talked to some folks. They're not happy about this. If you don't fix it,
here's the plan,
and automate it in some way, they're probably going to go elsewhere. So there's the plan. Yeah.
No doubt.
All right, let's wrap up as always with what's TEConnecting with you. This is our favorite segment. We get to talk about something fun from the world of science, tech, innovation, business, whatever we feel like chatting about today. So I'll start with you guys. Tim, we'll let you kick this one off. What's TEConnecting with you right now?
That's a good question. I guess with me, the thing that's connecting is just automation. And I've never seen automation move at the pace it's moving and be in so many different areas. And that automation is not just robotics, and I hesitate to say this because it's become a bad word, but AI. And what's happening with AI and the rapid pace of acceleration. And as I think about the next 3 to 5 years, how many new jobs will be created that aren't around today, and what will those jobs look like? So you start to look at as I mentioned, the rapid acceleration of automation in general, and I find that exciting.
John, what about you? What's TEConnecting with you?
You know what? Tim and I travel a lot. We fly a lot. Normally it's 1 or 2 nights, so I'm usually carrying my stuff on, or my bag on. But when I have to check my bag, you have that anxiety. Did my bag make it on? And I happen to be with an airline primarily here in the Detroit, flying in and out of Detroit, that uses, I'm going to use the RFID thing, that uses RFID on those baggage tags. And on my app, it tells me when the darn thing got loaded on the plane, and when it's gonna appear at the carousel. That technology is something that hits home to me and really is a differentiator in what airlines I choose to fly on. So I think, where technology really, hits home and causes me to make decisions about what provider I go to is really what I think, what this whole thing has been about is how do we make the technology relevant and not just simply pushing, scanners and printers and all these things which are relevant, but how do we make sure that the solution meets the needs of what the customer is and how does that help them within the marketplace? So those are kind of things I get excited about.
I'm with you. I love the luggage tracking as well. That it is fantastic. It does lower your anxiety. However, I was sitting at an airport at Atlanta, and one of the bags fell off of one of the carts and was sitting there woefully, just in the middle of nowhere. And for about 2 minutes, because they're really good at Atlanta airport, for about, well, maybe not even that long, maybe a minute, you just had this one luggage. I can just imagine the person on their app like, where's my luggage? Oh, it's sitting on the tarmac.
Middle of Airfield 1, yeah. Exactly.
Here's the best way to get to it.
Yeah. Find an emergency exit door, run for your life, grab the bag, get back.
My thing there. So John, you haven't had the incidents where your luggage ended up in like Bora Bora, and it's like, oh, well, I can track it. I see where it is, but it's nowhere near me. That hasn't happened yet. Yeah.
Not yet. Not in the last couple of years anyway. So.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
All right. What's all right?
So I'm sure you saw this headline. Google makes text-to-music AI public. So, of course, AI has been in the music world, right? And the lawyers are already, by the way, the lawyers are having a really hard time keeping up with AI and
there's going to
music.
be, I promise you, Harvard Law within the next year is going to have like a AI law course at some point.
100%. So Google released this Music LM, which is, you can put in text like soulful jazz music for dinner party. Bloop. It'll start playing, or it'll manufacture something or create an industrial techno sound that is hypnotic. I would do something like that, and it'll start creating those songs for you. These are, by the way, now being called home tracks. I didn't know if you realized that. Like if you generate
I guess
your own music. It's called a home track, which is apparently having multiple issues as well. And here, where I wanted to dive into, one of the legal people that was started out as an intern, blah blah blah. He's now kind of in the legal community. He argues that AI music generated from things like Music LM violate music copyright by creating a tapestry of coherent audio from the works that are ingested in the training of that, right? And I get it, but you got to stop whining. I came from a band, and look, how does a band come up with their sound? They imitate other bands. I mean, so
it's not like
there's no way you're going to stop that.
Original music.
There's no original. It hasn't changed, right? Led Zeppelin was trying to imitate the blues, folks, and it's just like you can't stop that. So anyway, it's interesting. Well, now even that's gotten down to the AI level.
I'm always amused by those lawsuits that pop up where some artist is like, "Oh, they stole my sound." And it's always some like random obscure person that you probably never did hear of before,
or a one-hit wonder.
Yeah, exactly. And the assumption that that a superstar had found their music and just stole it from them or whatever, and tried to make it their own. When in reality, like maybe they did hear it, but it's also entirely possible that they just happened to have created something that sounds the same.
Now, as a musician, I want to try to use it, but apparently there's a wait list to get onto this Music LM
as they all
thing.
are right
so
now.
Once I get in, though, I'm going to start playing with words. And
I expect in
see
some
what
of our
it creates.
some of our marketing meetings, you usually have some music playing. So have some home tracks. Yes. Dean Reverman home tracks.
Absolutely. So what's TEConnecting with you?
All right. So here's an interesting little thought piece and study that came out. It actually came out of Sweden, and this is one of those things where some folks might say, aha, this is why we shouldn't work from home. And some folks might say, like, aha, this is why it still doesn't actually matter where you work.
Got it.
So they did a study about traffic and how the sounds of traffic influence our work and what kind of work we're able to get done.
Yeah.
And I will say, get to that in a moment. Like, this feels like a very uniquely European and Swedish kind of study to do. Because I just feel like in America, people would just be like, so what? Traffic, it happens.
Yeah.
So basically all they found out was essentially that even slight noise increases can disrupt cognitive functions. And I think the statistic they highlighted out, or the noise level they had highlighted, was something like 40 decibels. It said, so what is unique about our study is that we are able to demonstrate a decline in performance at noise levels as low as 40 decibels.
Holy moly.
Now, here's the kicker, though, which corresponds to the regular noise level in an office environment or a kitchen.
40 dB. Okay, got it.
So to me, like, it almost kind of feels like they're saying, like, okay, even the normal offices that we were working in when we couldn't work from home
had a baseline noise.
Had noise levels that were kind of disrupted to cognitive functions anyway.
Okay.
So I look at that as kind of like, well, then is there actually a perfect place to work that you wouldn't have this? Other than a sensory deprivation tank or something, maybe, like...
Putting people in a sound tube and anechoic chamber where there's no sound.
Exactly. Yeah. You just can't do that. But there's a couple things they did point out, which I did find interesting. They said that close passing traffic is particularly troubling. So, the like traffic noise that's kind of at a distance in the background, people can adjust to that. It just becomes background noise that no one's really paying attention to. Yeah. But, when a giant truck is driving by your house,
or a train,
that can be,
or something like that.
Something like that can be a little more problematic. And also apparently that reduced speeds actually make it even worse. So if you're in a neighborhood that's got like speed bumps and trying to make people slow down, that's even worse because there's more time that sound is moving by you.
You can't win.
And you can't win out of that. So
if I have a house in the suburbs on a slow street, with a truck, going by slowly.
Exactly. But they did also know, and they were talking about it in Sweden, but I think this is very relevant in the U.S.
This does sound like a European study, by the way.
This does feel very relevant in the U.S. and other places too, is that housing now is being built in such a way where the distance from your house to the road is shorter than ever. And I will agree with that. I think back to some childhood homes I lived in where I had a backyard that was as big as, or a front yard that was as big as sprawling as the back might have been. Plenty of room to go out there and play.
That's
and now,
not the case anymore.
Like, we just built a new home a few years back, and it's definitely, it's a much shorter. I have almost as much room in the front as the backyard. Like it's about this almost equal amount of space to the road. Right. And I've got like construction and stuff going on nearby too. But I will just say, I'm someone who sticks some earbuds in. Like when I'm working,
that's self-induced.
I don't worry about the traffic sound because I'm putting earbuds in and listening to music or podcasts or something to do, to zone out the outside noise. It doesn't really bother me that much, but again, maybe this is something that elsewhere is more problematic than it is here, or that we in America just don't care enough.
Well, to worry about John's close to Detroit. That's that's a lot of industry and stuff like that. It's not quiet around there, is it?
Well, actually, I'm about an hour, and I live in an acreage, so I'm in about as quiet
as
you
go.
can.
All right.
There you go.
Oh, but wait a minute. Do the nature sounds then bug you? Or do those get hearing the birds in the background and stuff like that? No.
Be right to sleep.
Puts
me right to sleep.
There you go. See, so whatever. This isn't that disrupting. I mean, I guess if it really is a problem for you, go find yourself an acre of land to live on or something.
Yeah. In the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, that's nowhere near a road, so it's not a problem for you.
For sure.
All right, that's what's TEConnecting.
Easy for you to say.
Man, you'd think after this many podcasts I could say TEConnecting correctly. That is what's TEConnecting with us. John, Tim from Zebra, thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Guys.
We appreciated having you on the show. Until next time, unfortunately, it is time for us to unplug, but, go slap some tags on your luggage and track it into Bora Bora or the middle of a runway. And, I don't know, put some thicker windows up so you don't hear the traffic outside.
Bingo.
And as always, folks, please stay connected. This episode of the TEConnect podcast was brought to you by Zebra. All right, Dean, workforce connection.
Yes.
Getting your workforce connected. I think it's kind of, part of what we talked about today.
Yes.
Empowering employees.
Well, if you have a workforce, you want them connected.
Yeah.
Do you not? Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it probably isn't too helpful if they're all just scattered about and nobody has a clue
unconnected.
What anyone else is doing. Yeah.
Meandering wandersling.
Yeah, you probably don't have a business. That's just people in the middle of a field at that point. Well, Workforce Connect, powered by Zebra Savannah, delivers on the promise of a truly unified enterprise device, allowing users to add powerful voice and messaging features to Zebra mobile computers.
Nice.
With services such as push-to-talk, text messaging, and the ability to enable a Zebra mobile computer to also function as a mobile desk PBX. Try saying that 10 times.
Yeah, really?
Desk phone. Workers can perform all tasks on just one device, fully enabling the integration of voice and data workflows and reducing the number of steps required to complete just about any task.
Boom.
Again, right,
there you go. Absolutely.
Why make someone walk so many extra steps? Sally over at Warehouse A is going to say, well, I've got my Workforce Connect enabled device here that I don't have to walk 6,000 steps to do one task like you do over at Warehouse B.
Sally is enabled.
That's right.
That's right.
Modular and customizable, users can deploy the features they need today, easily add features to meet new business needs for tomorrow, and customize the experience for the specific needs of workers. To learn more about Workforce Connect powered by Zebra Savannah, check out the link in the show notes or contact your BlueStar representative. TEConnect Podcast is also brought to you by ELO. Built with versatility in mind, Elo Edge Connect offers a wide assortment of peripheral options for your digital display. Another Connect option.
Yes.
Connecting displays and stuff to the
versatile
displays.
yes.
Versatile, there you go.
Yes.
Whether for endless aisle, self-order, or collaboration, you can seamlessly attach up to 4 peripherals to the touchscreen Edge with flexibility to add, remove, or change later as needed.
Up to 4 peripherals?
Yeah.
Like what? Like what are you talking about?
Oh, you want a list here?
Oh, I need a list.
I got a list for you. We got temperature sensors.
There,
We
okay.
got status lights.
Nice.
We got 3D or conference scanners.
Oh.
We've got barcode scanners.
Yeah.
We got card readers, collaboration tools, payment cradles.
Holy moly.
Is that enough for you,
That's
Dean?
enough. That's enough.
All right. If you can't find
could
peripherals
do a
to
lot
meet
with that.
any customer needs from that list, you just aren't trying at this point. I mean, come on. What
You are
else?
not truly a solutions
What else do
integrator.
you want? You want a robotic arm or something here to push the buttons for
hey,
you?
I like that idea.
Yeah, I don't know.
We'll have to put that in the suggestion box over to Elo.
At
Modular robotic
which point
arm.
they probably go, oh, it's this TEConnect guys. Delete.
It's John and Dean again.
To learn more, check out the link in the show notes or contact your BlueStar account manager.